Dracula by Bram Stoker, created by Gravitas Dream. Jonathan travels by rail and carriage across unfamiliar borders, recording every detail in his journal. The farther he goes, the more warnings feel like omens. At a roadside inn, a local woman presses a small charm into his hand and begs him to turn back. Her fear is so sincere it makes him question his own confidence. A sealed letter arrives with precise instructions and a courteous welcome from an unseen host. Jonathan tells himself it is merely business, even as his pulse speeds up. Along the road, strangers make protective gestures and refuse to meet his eyes. Their silence feels like an accusation. As evening falls, a carriage arrives with lanterns bobbing in the dark. He climbs in, gripping his bag, and the horses surge forward. At midnight, the mountains swallow the road, and distant howls roll across the valleys. Strange blue sparks flicker among the stones, as if the earth itself is trying to warn him. The carriage stops before an ancient gate, and the air turns colder than the snow suggests. Jonathan steps out and hears a door open as if the castle was waiting. A tall gentleman welcomes Jonathan with perfect manners and a hand that feels unnaturally cold. The greeting is polite, yet it carries the weight of a trap closing. Jonathan eats alone in a grand dining room, while his host watches from the shadows. Every kindness feels measured, as if purchased with something unspoken. In lamplight, the Count's sharp white teeth flash when he smiles, and his long nails click softly on the wood. Jonathan feels unease rise, even as the conversation stays pleasant. The Count questions him about deeds, streets, and rooms with obsessive focus. Jonathan realizes the business is not merely purchase, but strategy. Shaving by a small mirror, Jonathan notices his host's face should be there, yet the glass shows only empty air. His hand slips, and a thin cut blooms red on his skin. Jonathan glimpses the Count in one corridor, then turns a corner and finds nothing but cold stone. The castle seems to rearrange itself around him, like a mind trying to confuse prey. He tests the main door and finds it locked from the outside. The realization hits hard. He is not a guest, but a prisoner. The Count calmly explains which rooms are forbidden and which letters Jonathan may write. The courtesy in his voice makes the threat feel sharper. Exploring by daylight, Jonathan finds a concealed door behind a tapestry and steps into a forgotten wing. Dusty furniture and cracked portraits stare back like witnesses. From a high window, he sees cliffs dropping into endless forest, leaving no safe route down. The view is beautiful enough to distract him and terrible enough to remind him why he must escape. In the hidden room, three women glide closer with smiles that promise pleasure and pain at once. Jonathan's mind swims as he senses teeth near his throat and the first warm spill of blood. The Count appears suddenly and tears them away with cold fury, as if claiming property. His mouth is stained dark, and Jonathan realizes the danger was not a dream. Shaking, Jonathan writes to Mina in careful phrases, hiding panic between polite lines. He also writes to his employer, hoping someone will notice the cracks in his words. Peter Hawkins reads Jonathan's letter and senses the desperation beneath the formal tone. He sets his jaw and begins making inquiries that could save a life. The Count makes Jonathan sign letters dated in the future, smiling as if the deception is a game. Jonathan understands he is being made to vanish on paper before he can vanish in truth. At night, Jonathan notices stacked crates and the smell of damp soil in a corridor he has never seen before. He realizes his host is preparing to travel, and his own time is running out. He finds a ruined chapel with a stone altar and a trap door hidden beneath torn cloth. The air below is colder, and it tastes like old dust and secrets. In a stone chamber, Jonathan sees his host lying in a box of earth, face slack as a corpse. The stillness is so complete, it feels like death rehearsed. He finds piles of gold coins and a ring of keys and stuffs what he can into his pockets. Every clink sounds loud enough to summon the castle. With a rope of knotted sheets, Jonathan lowers himself toward the outer ledge, hands burning with effort. The stone scrapes his palms until they leave bright red smears behind. He drops into the brush and runs until his lungs seize, then stumbles into a quiet convent by sheer luck. Fever takes him as the doors close, and darkness swallows the rest. Sister Agatha finds him shaking and half delirious, and she lays him in a clean bed. She prays over him not knowing whether she is saving a man or sheltering a curse. Sister Agatha writes a careful note to Mina, enclosing pages from Jonathan's journal. She warns that his mind is fractured, but his terror is real. Mina reads the nun's letter and feels the world tilt under her feet. She packs immediately, choosing action over panic. The journey feels endless, but Mina refuses to stop moving. Each mile is fueled by the fear that she will arrive too late. Jonathan wakes with bandaged hands and a mind full of shattered images. Teeth, shadows, and locked doors. He writes everything down, afraid that silence will make it happen again. In a small chapel, Mina and Jonathan marry quickly, clinging to the certainty of each other. The vows sound like comfort, but they also sound like defiance. Lucy writes to Mina about her 3 suitors and the strange thrill of being adored. Beneath her laughter, she admits she has been waking in odd places with no memory. Arthur rehearses his proposal, turning a ring box over and over in his palm. Love and duty feel inseparable to him, like 2 threads twisted tight. Lucy accepts Arthur's ring with tears and joy, believing happiness has finally chosen her. That night, she sleepwalks again, barefoot and smiling into the dark. Dr. Seward records his day in a clinical diary, trying to keep emotion out of the ink. His patient Renfield has begun collecting living things with unsettling devotion. Renfield sits quietly, murmuring numbers as he counts flies in a small box. His calm is so intense it feels like worship. Renfield now keeps spiders and watches them with hungry fascination. He speaks of life as if it were currency he can hoard. News arrives of a violent storm building over the coast, and Seward senses a pattern he cannot explain. He writes a letter requesting help from an old mentor. Van Helsing reads Seward's request and immediately packs his medical bag and odd tools. His face suggests he already suspects the truth. Mina meets Lucy in a quiet coastal town and tries to pretend life is normal. The sea air is fresh, yet Mina cannot shake the feeling that something is following them. A telegraph operator taps out frantic messages as reports of a ghost ship spread along the shoreline. Her hands never stop, even when the wind rattles the windows. A captain grips the wheel as the storm lashes the deck and the mast groans. He writes later that his crew is vanishing one by one, leaving only panic and prayers. In his cabin, the captain writes his final log entry with shaking hands. He swears he hears scraping on the hatch and a heavy breath in the dark. At dawn, the ship drifts into the harbor with no response and no welcome. When the authorities board, they find the crew dead and the deck marked with dark red streaks. Dr. Patrick Hennessy reads the captain's log and feels cold fear settle in his stomach. The pages describe a presence that feeds, leaving men pale and emptied. A tall stranger steps into the fog from the harbor and disappears into the streets without a sound. Later, rumors spread of a huge dog seen near the crates, but no one can agree on what they saw. Lucy sleepwalks toward the cliffs, drawn by something she cannot name. Mina finds her just in time, and Lucy's lips are stained with a faint red that she cannot explain. Mrs. Westenra watches over Lucy with fierce devotion, believing rest will cure anything. She keeps lamps lit, but the darkness still finds its way in. Van Helsing arrives and listens to Mina's story without disbelief. He asks to see Lucy at once, his tone urgent and grave. He examines Lucy and notices strange marks at her throat in a draining weakness that comes and goes. He says little, but his eyes reveal alarm. Lucy rests in bed while garlic flowers are placed around her like a barrier. She smiles weakly, not understanding why her room smells like a kitchen garden. That night, a shadow passes the window and a pale face appears for an instant. Mina hears Lucy gasp, and the sheets later show fresh blood where none should be. At sunrise, Lucy wakes dizzy and confused, her pillow marked with dark red stains. She insists she dreamed of a voice calling her name from the night air. Mrs. Westenra, wanting comfort rather than fear, removes the garlic and opens the window for fresh air. She does not realize she has undone their only protection. Van Helsing returns and sees the garlic gone, and his restraint cracks into anger. He warns that the next visit from the Count will not leave Lucy alive. Seward prepares instruments for a transfusion, hands steady despite dread. In the next room, Lucy's breath grows thin and time becomes brutal. Arthur sits alone with his head in his hands, listening to muffled footsteps and whispered orders. He feels helpless, as if love is something he cannot protect. Quincy arrives with practical calm and a hard look in his eyes. He promises he will do what must be done, even if it stains his conscience. For a single day, Lucy's color returns, and her laughter sounds like herself again. The relief is so strong it feels like a lie they want to believe. Renfield's calm shatters into violence as he throws himself at a locked door, screaming for his master. When attendants restrain him, blood spatters across the white wall from his split lip. Seward records that Renfield struck him hard enough to leave him dizzy and seeing stars. The incident convinces him that something outside medicine is at work. Lucy's strength fails in the night, and her pulse fades despite every effort. When she is gone, the room is quiet except for the wet sound of someone crying into their hands. Van Helsing arranges the funeral with efficient sorrow, insisting on certain rites that seem strange to the others. He speaks of mercy as if it must be earned. Arthur stands by the coffin and feels grief harden into rage. He swears he would give his own blood again if it would bring her back. Mina receives a telegram about Lucy and feels the world narrow to a single line of ink. Jonathan's face goes rigid, as if he recognizes the hand behind it. Van Helsing asks for Mina's diaries and Jonathan's journal and reads them like evidence in a trial. When he looks up, he says the monster's name aloud at last. Van Helsing tells Seward that Lucy has been taken by a vampire and that death will not be the end of her. Seward wants to reject the idea, but he cannot forget the blood on the pillow. Near the graveyard at night, Van Helsing waits in the mist and listens for soft footsteps on wet grass. He carries sacred items and a lantern, ready to prove the impossible. Lucy appears pale and lovely in the fog, her eyes bright with hunger and her lips red. By morning, a child is found with small bite marks, and fear spreads like smoke. Van Helsing finds the child and carries them back to safety, refusing to let panic turn into cruelty. He tells Seward that mercy must include hard truths. Seward documents the bite marks and the strange weakness, fighting nausea as he writes. The pattern matches Lucy's wounds too precisely to ignore. Arthur argues, pleads, and finally agrees to open the tomb, terrified of what he will see. Love becomes a knife turned inward, forcing him to face the unbearable. Van Helsing pries open the stone door and steps into the cold chamber. The coffin lies waiting, like a mouth that refuses to stay shut. They find the coffin empty, its satin lining disturbed as if someone rose in a hurry. Seward feels his skin crawl as the proof becomes physical. Van Helsing places a barrier of sacred symbols and garlic to keep the thing inside from leaving again. The air seems to tighten, as if the tomb itself resents being fenced. When Lucy returns to the tomb, Arthur sees her smile and knows it is not the woman he loved. He drives a wooden stake through her heart, and blood spills dark across the stone as her body finally grows still. Arthur sinks into sobs, and Van Helsing tells him the mercy was real, even if it was brutal. The horror leaves a silence that feels almost holy. Mina asks Seward to share his recorded diary so she can assemble the truth from every angle. She turns grief into work, believing facts can defeat fear. Mina types pages late into the night, stitching journals and letters into a single record. Her hands shake, but her sentences stay orderly. Van Helsing gathers the men and forms a pact to destroy the Count, no matter the cost. They swear over maps and tools, knowing someone may die before the end. Quincy checks his revolver and knife, then pockets them with grim resolve. He jokes once, then stops, as if humor would invite death. In a rented house, Dracula sleeps in a box of earth by day, hidden behind mundane walls. At night, he hunts again, leaving drained bodies and whispered panic. Jonathan studies shipping receipts and marks each crate's route on a map. The paper trail feels like a monster's footsteps made visible. Mina discovers deeds and addresses that reveal the Count has built multiple hiding places. Each new location feels like another throat he can reach. Seward forces a door and steps into a dust-choked room, lamp in hand. The stench of earth and rot makes him gag, and he knows the Count has been near. Van Helsing opens a crate and performs a grim ritual to make it unusable as a refuge. He speaks prayers with the calm of a surgeon, even as the others flinch. Dracula appears in the doorway with eyes like burning coals, and the air turns icy. He lashes out, and moments later the floor is streaked with red as he slips away into the night. Back at the asylum, Renfield begs Seward to be freed, claiming he has information that could save Mina. His terror is so raw it sounds like honesty. Renfield tries to block the Count's path and is brutally beaten for it, left broken on the floor. He dies whispering a warning, and the corridor carries the metallic smell of blood. Seward records Renfield's death with shaking hands, no longer pretending this is only illness. The asylum walls feel thinner than paper now. Mina wakes with a burning mark at her throat and a new dread in her eyes. She remembers being held down, a mouth at her skin, and the taste of blood she did not choose. Van Helsing places a protective circle around Mina and tells her she is still herself. He promises the Count can wound her body, but he will not claim her spirit without resistance. Mina enters a trance and describes cold water, creaking wood, and the rhythm of waves. The clues point to the Count fleeing by ship with one of his boxes. Arthur studies timetables and routes, calculating how to intercept the cargo before it leaves the country. Every line on the page feels like a countdown. Quincy loads supplies into a travel bag and checks his compass one last time. He knows the road ahead ends either in victory or a grave. In a warehouse, Dracula stands beside a sealed crate and listens, smiling at the humans closing in. He believes their courage will only make the ending sweeter. At dawn in the snowy pass, Jonathan watches knives flash and hears a final scream as the Count is destroyed. The snow is stained dark, and for the first time in months, the world feels quiet.